Right, everybody, welcome back to the Renowned Leadership Podcast. I am your host, Stephen Morris, and I am so glad for y'all to be here. I'm so glad to be here. Blessed, honored that you're joining me. And let me tell y'all, today I got an amazing episode for you. Mr. Terry Tucker is here to share his incredible, inspiring journey. I can't wait for y'all to hear it. So I'm not going to talk anymore. Let's just go ahead and jump right into it. So here we go. All right, everybody, welcome back to the Renowned Leadership Podcast. I am your amazing freaking host, Stephen Morris, and I have the best guest for you guys today. It is one of my fellow brothers. He was a cop, but still out there putting his life on the line. And we have a lot of similarity in our story and in our experience. So it's going to be really fun to talk to him. He is the amazing Terry Tucker. And so Terry, when I told my business coach my story of my life and getting shot and all the things that happened to me, he was like, dude, your life is a train wreck. And he said it in a loving way, but it kind of stung a little bit, I'm like, man, is it really? Like, I guess it is. But I think you have successfully one-upped me on the train wreck status. So I don't even want to, I just want to hear the whole story from beginning to end. Division I basketball player to just cancer survivor, and I believe you're still fighting cancer, correct? Yeah. So just tell us about this and this train wreck.
Sure. So first of all, Stephen, thanks for having me on. I'm really looking forward to talking with you today. I'll try to give you the Reader's Digest version of it. I'm born and raised on the south side of Chicago. I am the oldest of three boys. You can't tell this from looking at me or from my voice, but I'm 6'8" tall, and actually went to college at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina on a basketball scholarship. When I graduated from college, I was the first person in my family to graduate from college. I moved home to find a job. I'm really going to date myself now, but this was long before the internet was available to help people find employment. Fortunately, I found that first job in the corporate headquarters of Wendy's International, the hamburger chain, in their marketing department. That was the good news. The bad news was I lived with my parents for the next 3.5 years as I helped my mother care for my father and my grandmother, who were both dying of different forms of cancer. Professionally, as I said, started out at Wendy's, then I became a hospital administrator, and then I made that major pivot in my life and became a police officer. And one of the things I did in my law enforcement career is I was a SWAT team hostage negotiator. After law enforcement, I started a school security consulting business, coached girls high school basketball. I became an author in 2020. But for the last 11 years, I've been battling this rare form of cancer, this rare form of melanoma. And then I guess just finally, my wife and I have been married for 30 years. We have one child, a daughter, who's a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy and is a captain in the new branch of the military, the Space Force.
Oh, I won't make jokes, I promise.
Notice the logo on.
I thought that's what it was, but I wasn't 100% sure. So now that's, it's man. So first of all, thank you for all the work you've done. I can only imagine the stress of being a hostage negotiator, because your decisions it's not just the people in that room that your decisions make. Like one mistake on your part, and then your officers that are in harm's way are getting shot at, or you've just there could be 20 hostages that are all now dead because you made a bad decision. I can't imagine that stress. Like, how did you cope with that amount of stress?
I mean, I think it was grounded in my family. I remember when I first started, they gave us a formula about how we communicate with each other. And that formula was 738-55. And what that meant was 7% of the way you communicate are the words that you use. 38% of it was the tone of voice you used with those words. And then 55% of it was your body language or facial expressions. So as police officers, 99% of what we did was face-to-face with another person, whether we were stopping you to give you a ticket for speeding or whether we were answering a radio run to, for a fight. It was face-to-face. But what we didn't have as negotiators was that 55%. And so, I could say something and I didn't see the person on the other end, kind of rolling their eyes like, oh, what an idiot. I can't believe he said, and that happened a lot. You would not know why you were there. What started this, what precipitated this, why are we here? So you're starting from ground zero. And in any relationship, parent, child, husband, wife, boss, subordinate, the overarching thing that you're trying to establish is trust. Will this person trust me? And there were times we would spend hours over here talking about something when the real problem was over here and the person didn't trust us. We hadn't built up that empathy, that trust with that person to allow them to feel that way. So yeah, there was a lot of stress. There were a lot of times where you're like, I don't know where to go. I'm just going to pick a rabbit hole and go down it and see what happens. And if I'm wrong, they'll tell you. They literally is like, no, you're an idiot. Why did you even say that? Okay, I was wrong. Pull back, regroup, pick another rabbit hole to go down. So there was a lot of stress in it. But I was, cops and things like that, there's a higher incident of divorce, higher incident of drug and alcohol abuse. And so, it was like, hey, let's go out for a drink after this. I'm like, no, I'm going home because my family was my grounding point. My family made this real for me, but also was the place I would go for a sanctuary where I could decompress. Our daughter was young and I didn't tell my wife everything, but I was with people that loved me and that I loved. And for me, that was a way to decompress and take away some of the stress. Now, I'll be honest with you, about 90% of the time we were successful getting people out. But about 10% of the time, the person we were negotiating with, could have been a homicide suspect or something like that knew when they came out, they were going to prison for the rest of their life. And they chose to end their life. And while that was always bad, I never lost any sleep over that. And I don't want anybody to think I'm callous, but I knew I had done the best I could to get them out. I knew I had great training and I knew I worked with good people. So, at the end of the day, it was really their decision how this was going to end.
So I think the key thing, which is kind of the subtext of what you're saying is mindset, right?
Okay.
Your mindset was always key and you found ways to ground your mindset. So in the examples you gave, that was in your family and in your team and your coworkers. And I feel, coming with my military background, the suicide rate is insane. I've lost more friends to suicide than I ever have to combat, which is heartbreaking. And it's because our minds, God blessed me with a mind that's just dark enough to like you, I don't lose any sleep over it, but at the same time, I'm still grounded and not just a complete psychopath. But, for a lot of people, that mindset's hard to find. And so that's kind of what you do now, right? Is you help people develop winning mindsets. And so what goes in to so your family was a key pivotal point for you maintaining your mindset during these challenging times in your life. What are some other key mindset anchors, if you will?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things, and I think you learn this, or you should learn this through your family, are your values. What's important in your life. And you and I were talking before we started to record, and how many people out there that are valueless, that don't have any values. If you ask them what do you value, what is something that's so built into your spirit, to your soul, to your heart, that it's unwavering. It would never. And people are like, I don't know. I don't know what that is. So I think if you have values, those are like anchors. Those are like, foundations for goals and things like that. And we always, we got to set goals, we got to set goals, we got to set goals. But if those goals aren't attached to a value, to a foundation, then is it any wonder that most New Year's resolutions go by the wayside by February, and that so many people never reach their goals because they don't know what they believe in. They don't have anything that's bigger than them. And I think that's, at least for me, and maybe you can talk to this as a member of the military and being part of a team. What being part of team sports taught me was the importance of being part of something that's bigger than yourself. You realize on a team that if you don't do your job, not only do you let yourself down, but you let your teammates down, your coaches down, your fans down, your parents down, etc. And if you think about it, the biggest team game that we all play is this game of life. So for me, life has always been, it's not about me. It's not about me individually. I used to always tell my players, when I was coaching basketball, I will treat you fairly. I mean, you're all unique, but you're not special. I may tell my point guard, I mean, really, you are unique, but I may tell my point guard, don't you shoot the ball because you're not a good shooter. But I want you to distribute the ball to this person who is a good shooter. That's their skill. That's your skill. What is your role in all this? And so, I always used to tell my team, you need to become comfortable with being uncomfortable. And I think that's how you callous your mind. That's how you handle difficult things. You do think, and I do this every day. Do one thing every day that scares you, that makes you nervous, that makes you uncomfortable, that's potentially embarrassing. It doesn't have to be a big thing. But if you do those small things every day, when the big disasters in life hit us, and they hit all of us, we lose somebody who's close to us, we get let go from our job, find out we have a chronic or a terminal illness, you'll be so much more resilient to handle that pain than the people who never challenge themselves every day.
So much to unpack there. And so, people that listen to the beginning of the story, like, dude, you're kind of a jerk because his life isn't a train wreck. Well, he left out a key part of his story, and that is this cancer has cost you your foot and ultimately your entire leg.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I have worked with countless amputees, and I know that is one of the biggest soul crushing things that can happen to somebody is they lose their limb and have to learn to live life without it. So I mean, that's ultimately why I called your life a train wreck, is just I can't imagine. I got shot, I had all these horrible things happen to me, but I'm still all here for the most part. I mean, I got a few metal attachments, but I mean, I didn't lose a limb or the use of a limb. And I couldn't imagine keeping a mindset, maintaining a positive mindset, a strong mindset going through like, and it's not like, for a soldier, it's, for a lot of them, it happens like that. 1 minute you have two legs, the next minute you don't have any legs. But for you, I imagine it was a process where a doctor had to be like, look, dude, we gotta cut this off.
Exactly. And for me, it happened in the middle of COVID. And so it was literally, we need to do this. I had a tumor that had grown large enough that it fractured my tibia, my shin bone.
Oof.
My entire, my leg basically below the knee was all full of cancer. So it was like, we're going to have to take your leg, above your knee. And I remember, my wife literally dropped me off at the hospital that morning. She was like, what do I do? I said, I don't know. I said, go park in the parking lot and pray. A nurse met me, wheeled me back to the pre-op room, which is this huge room that, is all divided into different bays where there should have been all kinds of people getting ready for all different surgeries. I was the only person in that whole room. And I was the only person having surgery that day. I was supposed to be in the hospital for 10 days to 2 weeks to learn how to function without a leg, to, with a walker and get around and stuff like that. But because of COVID, I was in for 48 hours and then they kicked me out and sent me home. So it was scary. And I honestly believe, if I didn't have a good mindset, if I hadn't challenged myself every day, I don't know how I would have done that. I mean, I think back on it now, I'm like, oh my God, there was no support. It's you're losing a leg and there's nobody there to support you, nobody there to hold your hand, nobody to say it's going to be okay. That's all got to come from you.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And I couldn't even imagine. Because like I said, I've seen the destruction that losing limbs can cause psychologically to someone. And I couldn't imagine having, they had support and it still was destructive. I couldn't imagine having to do it alone. So, I mean, and I love what you said. I absolutely agree. You build that resiliency by facing fear. And my big thing is action breeds clarity. You find what you're scared of, and then you take a step into that fear and start doing action, taking action. And a lot of times, once you do, the first thing I've learned is, well, when you do that, a lot of times you realize like this really isn't anything for me to be scared of.
Yeah,
And then,
we're scared of the unknown. It's things we don't
right,
understand. Yeah.
right, absolutely. And then after that, then you're like, okay, well, this is a reasonable fear, but now that I can see it, I can prepare for it, I can plan for it, and I can take action to avoid that, but I'm prepared for it if it does happen. So I mean, you're absolutely right. Like you have to take steps into what scares you. And I agree 100%. That is where mental resiliency comes from when it comes to your mindset and maintaining a positive mindset. And like you said, you couldn't have, man, being an entrepreneur is scary, right? I couldn't imagine doing this without the mindset that I have because, I had to take out a very large loan to start my company. And, if it fails, there's no plan B. Like I gotta start working 3 jobs to pay this loan off and get out of debt. Right. It has to work. So and so dealing with those fears, that stress, it all comes from just maintaining a positive mindset. And I want listeners to be very careful here because we're not saying we're not human. We still have bad days, or at least I do. I'm sure you do too. But it's the power that we have is that when we have these bad days, we can claw our way back out of the darkness into the light.
You're right. And I had a nurse recently ask me, I'm still being treated. I have tumors in my lungs and I'm treated for an entire week every 3 weeks. And I've been doing that for almost 3 years now. And I had a nurse ask me, what was it like to lose your foot in 2018 and your leg in 2020? And I told her, yeah, you're right. We're human beings. I said, it hasn't been easy. I'm still learning how to walk again. At 6'8", falling is not an option. You get hurt when you fall from the side. But what I told her was, cancer can take all my physical faculties, but cancer can't touch my mind, it can't touch my heart, and it can't touch my soul. And that's who I am. That's who you are, Steve. And that's who everybody who's listening to us really is. We spend a ton of time, working on our bodies, exercising, eating right, getting enough rest, reducing stress. And I'm not telling you not to do that. You absolutely should do that. But what I am suggesting is maybe spend a little time each day working on who you really are, your heart, your mind, and your soul. Because this body, we all know it's going to die, it's going to decay. But your heart, your mind, and your soul, those things are eternal. Those things will live on. But we don't spend nearly as much time working on those things.
Yeah, and it's sad because, it's sad because I think people are scared to do that work because it hurts, right? It hurts to stand and look in the mirror. And my audience has heard this story a million times, and I was telling you right before we started recording about, my struggle with gaining so much weight after I left the military and all of that. It was hard to look at myself in the mirror and just like, dude, look at what you've become. You're completely out of shape. You've let your body go. You couldn't defend your way out of a paper. If someone attacked your family, you would be out of breath in 5 seconds. You can't protect anybody. And that's always been a big identifier for me is I can protect my family no matter what or die trying. Right. now it's just pretty much die. Like, that's my option. And it's like, it would hurt so bad to look at myself in the mirror and have that conversation. But that's the work that had to happen, right? I had to embrace that pain, and I had to embrace all those difficulties. And that was the catalyst ultimately that propelled me into the personal growth to rediscover who I am and realize that my life isn't over, my purpose isn't over. I was just too stupid, too blind to see it in the time. And then I let the depression and all this crap take a hold of me. Ultimately, I lost my mindset. The thing that had got me through such a long military career, I lost it all. And so whenever it comes to you and embracing that pain, what are some key uh, mindsets you hold dear to help you weather that pain and those struggles?
Yeah, I mean, I have bad days. When I go for treatment, I get down. I feel sorry for myself. I cry. I mean, I do. I mean, I really do. I am when I have my clinical trial drug, I have a terrible reaction. I shake violently. I'm nauseous. I throw up. I have a headache. It's ugly. And again, my nurses keep asking, why do you keep coming back? Why do you keep doing this? And I think the answer to your question is this. When we are feeling that way, when we are feeling, woe is me, this is terrible. One of my favorite authors is Ernest Hemingway. And Hemingway once said, life breaks everyone. And afterwards, many are stronger at the broken places. And I love that quote. But when I find I'm looking inward where, oh, woe is me, this is terrible, this sucks. It's just that I'm looking inward. And I find a really easy way to overcome that is to turn that around and look outward. Who can I help? Who can I make a phone call to? Who can I just show up in the room and say, hey, how's it going? You want to talk? Do you want to have a cup of coffee? Now all of a sudden, my focus is not on me. My focus is on making a positive difference in the life of another human being. Tell you another interesting story. I had this is another nurse. All I got is like sports and nurse stories for you. So sorry, but I had, this was a young nurse. She was about 25. She was already a nurse, but she was learning how to work on the unit, the infusion center where I get treated. And about 8 months later, she was taking care of me on her own. And she came in and she said, Terry, I've got a story to tell you, but I'm a little uncomfortable telling it to you. And Stephen, I didn't know how to respond to that. I was like, well, I hope you decide you want to tell me. So over the next couple hours, she's in and out. Finally, she comes in, sits down. She's like, all right, here's the story. She said, when I first met you, I was going to get out of nursing. I'd had a good friend of mine die. I was in a really dark place. I talked to my mom and dad. I was going to quit nursing and I was going to go to work for Amazon. And then I saw you, I met you, and I see all you go through during your treatments. And then I went back into your file and I read everything you've been through. And she said, when I finished reading, I knew I was where I was supposed to be. Now, if she would have never told me that story, I would have had no idea my life had a positive impact on her. So the question is, who's out there that's watching you that, here's your story, Stephen, and says, you don't know who this person is, but oh my God, I'm so inspired. I'm so motivated by hearing your story that it's going to make my life better. I guarantee you, I don't care how down you are, how depressed, how ugly things are, there is someone or many people out there that are watching how you handle your stress, how you handle your difficulty, and would give almost everything they have to spend 5 minutes walking in your shoes.
Yeah, 100%. Actually have goosebumps from that story. Like, and that's so true. And I think we lose sight of that too easy because we get so just victimized by our circumstances. And that's one of the things I fight so hard against is this. In culture today, it seems like victim status is almost desired and elevated to me. And that breaks my heart because a victim is not a winner. There's no such thing as a champion victim, right? A champion is someone that overcomes. right? Just by the definition of being a victim, you are a loser. Now, I'm not saying you yourself are a loser. I'm saying your circumstances have lost, but it's overcoming. Where would Michael Jordan be today if he sat there and said, you know what, I got cut from the basketball team. I'm a loser. Nah, he didn't. He wasn't a victim. He could have said, oh well, that white coach, he doesn't like me and kicked me off the team. He's racist. He could have said that, and it may have been true. I don't know, but he didn't. He just got back up. I'm sure it hurt, but he got back up and he faced that challenge, faced that fear, and he refused to become a victim to his circumstances. And I think, especially me, like when people are like, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, all those things happened to you." I'm like, don't be sorry. I love that they happened to me because everyone loves to hear the stories. Like they get, and very few people will admit that they love to hear the stories, but they loved it's such an easy conversation starter, icebreaker. Like, yeah, I got shot 3 times. What? Like instantly people are intrigued and they want to talk to me. Right. So I'm glad because it gives me a doorway into people's lives. Thank you, God, for letting me survive that. Right. So it's all perspective. It's all in how you look at it rather than like, yes, this is happening to you. Yes, it's horrible. And I'm so sorry that you're having to go through it. But rather than become a victim, think of it like exactly what you said. Think about how can I use this to inspire other people, to help other people, to make a difference in other people's lives. And you're absolutely right. And I just want to share this real quick story with you. A new client of mine found my podcast, heard one of my guests and I talking, was completely inspired by our stories. And I had no idea about this guest or about this person until recently. And so he'd just been quietly following me, listening to my podcast, reading my writing, following my LinkedIn and social media posts, and then finally sent me a message and was like, "Hey man, you really inspire me. Thank you." And I sent him a message back. I'm like, "Hey, yeah, no problem, man. I love that. Like, let's have a meeting and talk about it." And he was blown away. I guess to listen to him describe it, it makes me sound like a celebrity, which I'm not. But I guess to him, I appear that way, and he was floored that I would want to take the time to talk to him. And now he's working with me, and I'm helping him. But I had no clue that I was helping somebody. I just assumed that I am. And my big thing is just one person. That's all I want. I want to help just one freaking person, dude. If I can make a difference in one person's life and make them better, then my entire life has had value and I can die happy knowing that I just made a difference to one single person. And I think when every day when I wake up and it's like, oh, I have 20 meetings today and 24 hours in the day. How am I going to do this? This sucks. Why do I even do this? And when I'm writing checks to pay the bills, I'm like, God, it's so expensive. Why do I do this? And then I remember it's like, oh yeah, there's that one person, dude, just that one that I'm helping, that we're helping right now. Just there's one person that's going to hear your story that has cancer. And they're like, you know what? If Terry Tucker can do it, he ain't special. You already said it. I'm not special. You're not special, but you have skills, you have gifts that make you unique. And if Terry can do that with his non-special self, I can do that with my non-special self as well. And that's what it's all about, dude. And that is when your life has value. That's when your life has purpose. And that is when your mindset can be undestructible.
You're absolutely right. And I devoted an entire chapter in my book. And the title of that chapter is Most People Think with Their Fears and Their Insecurities instead of using their minds. And I know I've done that. I know I've done, I'd like to do this. Oh, wait a minute. Do I have enough intelligence? Do I have enough information? What will people think about me if I fail?
Right. Yeah.
That's thinking with our fears and our insecurities. That's not thinking with our minds. And I always tell, especially young people, if there's something in your heart, something in your soul that you believe you're supposed to do, but it scares you, go ahead and do it. Because at the end of your life, the things you're going to regret are not going to be the things you did. They're going to be those things you didn't do. And by then it's going to be too late to go back and do them.
Absolutely. Oh, dude, 100%, man. And that's why I try to encourage everybody, just embrace your fear. Fear is a good thing, right? Fear is a warning to be careful, right? Jumping out of an airplane, like I'm deathly scared of heights. Jumping out of an airplane, not my jam. I mean, it is. I love doing it, but in the beginning, I didn't, right? And so, there is that reasonable fear that if everything goes horribly wrong, I'll die. Yeah, that's reasonable, right? But what that does is it propels me to make good decisions while I'm doing the thing. It makes me be careful. It makes me be wise. It makes me seek guidance. So, I mean, starting my own company, I'm sure, like you when you started your company, and I can't remember. Well, real quick, what's the name of your company again? I forget.
Motivational Check.
Motivational Check. Thank you. And so when you started Motivational Check, I'm sure you were scared, but then you're like, you know what? I need to seek people that know how to do this, that can teach me, that I can learn from, that I can bounce ideas off of. And when, that's what fear does. So you have two options when it comes to fear. You can either dwell in it, which causes you to do nothing because you're too scared, or you can embrace it. And you're like, okay, what is fear trying to teach me? You learn what your fear is trying to teach me. And then, like I said, as you're doing it, you're like, oh, wait, I don't need to be scared of this, and this. I do need to be scared of these things, but how do I mitigate these things from happening? How can I prevent it? How can I, if it does happen, how can I mitigate the damage? Yada, yada, yada. So, I mean, and that's so true. You just got to embrace your fear, embrace the suck, as we say in the Army, just embrace it.
Yeah.
And when you embrace it, like, we have a funny saying in the Army, if it ain't raining, we ain't training. And there's nothing I hate more than being wet in the rain. I hate it so freaking much. But when you embrace it, you're laughing. Dude, I can't tell you how many amazing conversations, funny conversations I've had while getting shot at. Right? Because we just embrace it. It's our environment currently. Yes, it's dangerous. Yes, it's scary. We have to embrace it. And then that just makes you able to do so many amazing things.
It really does. And and just so your audience understands, this happens to everyone. This fear, this, am I good enough? Can I do this? I don't care who you are. I did a podcast with a gentleman who was a former NFL player. I mean, this guy played for the Titans and the Bengals and the Bills. And we were talking, as a matter of fact, his brother's in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. And we were talking afterwards. And he said, Terry, when I started my podcast, I was scared to death. I said, Marcus, you were an NFL player. You were at the highest peak of professional excellence. What do you mean you were scared? He's like, I didn't think anybody would take me seriously. I didn't think anybody would want to listen to me. I didn't think anybody would want to hear how I felt about leadership.
Yeah.
And so we all have this. I don't care, if you're a billionaire or you're an NFL player or if you're just a schmuck like me, it's like, we all have things to offer people and we all feel unsure of ourselves. The difference is, are you willing to take that next step? Are you willing to put one foot in front of the other and keep moving forward? Because the vast majority of people in life aren't. And if you can do that, I mean, this is kind of an amputee joke. You really have a leg up on so many other people if you're willing to do that, because the vast majority of people in the world aren't.
Right. Absolutely. And then doing and embracing that fear and then doing when you focus on like, okay, so and I totally understand where that friend of yours is coming from, because I felt the exact same way. Starting my podcast, oh, it was horrible. Absolutely horrible. It was so horrible for me, in fact. Because I hate the sound of my voice. And people are like, oh, everybody. No, like I think I think I'm the annoying equivalent to Kermit the Frog. Like that is what I hear when I hear my own voice. It is horrible, horrible, horrible. It drives me nuts. It's so annoying. Like I get angry at myself for the sound of my own voice. Like, how do I sound like such a schmuck? Like, yeah, how do people take me serious? Why would anyone want to listen to me? And so like I had all these thoughts, like just I can't do this. And so finally I decided I was going to, right? I didn't do an ounce of research, not an ounce, because I knew if I did, I would find a reason not to do it. So I just turned the camera on, started recording out of my crappy microphone on my computer, right? I had nothing, no podcast set up at all. And I just started doing it. And now I don't identify myself as an entrepreneur. Yes, I am an entrepreneur. I am a public speaker. I am all these things, but you know what I am first? I'm a podcaster, man, because I love my podcast. I love my audience. I love getting to do this, right? It doesn't make me an ounce of money on the front end, at least, but I love doing it because this is the way I can affect thousands of people, right? This conversation right here is going to affect thousands of people, right? So I love doing it. And if I had embraced that fear, or if I hadn't embraced that fear and just done it, then I would have crippled myself. Amputee joke for you.
Thank you.
But I would have crippled myself in my ability to make that lasting impact, which is ultimately what we all seek, right? What we all want is to leave a legacy of impact in people's lives. We don't do that by becoming a billionaire, right? I mean, we can, it certainly makes it easier the more money you have, but that's not what leaves impact and a legacy for yourself. What leaves legacy is when after you're dead and gone, people are still talking about you, right? When a grandparent's telling their grandchild, like, I worked with this guy named Terry Tucker, and he changed my life because he told me this thing, or he made me see this thing. That is what we're talking about when we talk about legacy and lasting impact. It's not, that's the only thing. To me, that's the only thing that it matters, because ultimately, and people are going to hate that I say this, that's how you get immortality. All right, everybody, I just want to interrupt the podcast really, really quick and take a minute to tell you all about the brand new Renown coaching system. This is a system I've personally designed and put a lot of thought and effort and love into. It's an amazing system. Let me tell you real quick why it's an amazing system, because you get real time analytics. You get to see exactly where you were when you started, where you currently are, and how close you are to achieving that ultimate goal that you set at the very beginning. You get analytics for everything. More importantly, the accountability with this system is the best you'll find anyplace else in the world. I get to see everything that's going on and make sure that you are staying accountable to the goals you set. It's truly powerful. You guys just got to see it for yourself. Go to renownleadership.com, go to the top right-hand corner, click book a call. You'll get to come talk to me personally, and I will personally give you a tour of this system. It is truly amazing. It's one of a kind, and it's truly, truly powerful. I'm so excited. I can't wait to show y'all. That's all I got to say about it. So let's get back to the podcast.
It is. And you and I, you know who Fred Rogers is, Mr. Rogers.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. I mean, he educated so many people on public television, including me growing up. When Fred Rogers died in 2003, his family was going through his effects, and they found his wallet. And inside of his wallet was a scrap piece of paper. And on that piece of paper was written 4 simple words: life is for service. And if you think about that, it's not, Stephen, we all think that, we're born empty, and that, when we get out of high school or the military or college or whatever, whenever we get into life, we seem to think that our job is to fill our empty selves up, that we'll be happy if we have a great education and we make a lot of money and we have a pretty wife and we have great kids and we have all this stuff. But what I've come to understand is we're not born empty. We're born full. We're born with everything we need to be successful in life already inside us. We just need to find that and pull it out and use it for our benefit. So, it shouldn't be what we get. People who just spend their life getting stuff, they're never happy. The people that are happy are the people that realize that they're full and their job should be to empty themselves out for the betterment of themselves, certainly, but of their family, of their community, of their branch of the military, of their country. And those are the people, I think, in life that understand what's really important. It's not what you get, it's what you give in life.
Man, that is, again, you gave me goosebumps. You're absolutely right. And I've never thought about it that way at all, because I've never thought, man. So I'm sorry, I'm just trying to process and see. I guess I've never really bought into I need to achieve wealth or, these possessions to be happy in life, because like I told you, I knew I was going to be a soldier since I was 6 years old, and soldiers don't make a lot of money. So I'd always just kind of just accepted I was never going to be rich. Um, so I don't think I ever had that, but I definitely envied it. So I guess in a sense I did. I just knew my path wasn't going to take me there. But and you're right. I think once I realized like it's not about me, that's when the switch happened, that I started making impact in other people's lives. And in the military, it's extreme, especially or in being a cop, it's really important because your life isn't about you. Your life is about the guy to your left and right who you're trying to keep alive. Right? It's a pretty important purpose.
Yeah.
Right? Like their families appreciate that.
Yes.
So I think that kind of gives us a little bit of a unique perspective, but ultimately that's a perspective anyone can have, because if you're a construction worker, you were providing a home for somebody. That's a very needed purpose. I don't know the first freaking thing about building a house. I couldn't do that. Right. So I mean, so good on you when you embrace that mindset rather than I'm just going to work to make a paycheck. It suddenly takes on a different characteristic, I guess. It goes into a different file in your mind, maybe, of I'm making an impact. Everything you do in life, I think if done the right way with the right intention, can make an impact, no matter what it is. Even if it's just giving some random person $10, you know.
Yeah.
One of my favorite things, one of my guests recently told me that does is he always carries $100 bills in his wallet. And a couple times a week, he always tries to just find one person that looks like they could use $100 that day. And I mean, one, good on him for being able to afford to do that. And two, good on him for realizing that he needs to do that. Like he's got the blessing of all this money. So we'll use it to impact other people's lives. Right. And so I never ever tell people not to try to make money. Right. Money, you need money. And money is not evil. And a lot of people try to quote the Bible and say money's the root of all evil. That's not what the Bible says. When they misquote the Bible. The Bible actually says the love of money is the root of all evil. So when we hear that quote, whether it's in a biblical sense or not, taking away those few words changes completely the meaning of the quote. And so, and I'm not trying to preach it to anybody. It's just that's a common thing. And I feel like people get scared of money. And it's like, if again, just understand it's just a tool that you're going to use to impact and affect people's lives.
Yeah, it really is. And when you were talking, I was thinking about whatever we do, how do we approach it? Do we approach it with the handle of I get to, or I have to? Do I have to go to work today, or do I get to go to work today? Do I have to make a difference in somebody's life, or do I get to make a difference in somebody's life? It's really the perspective that you bring to it. And again, keeping in mind, we all have bad days. Well, I don't want to go to work today. I get that. But do you get to, or do you have to? When you walk in somebody else's shoes, you really, I haven't worked in 11 years, but this is a purpose for me now. And, we talk about our purpose a lot. It's important to find our purpose. Viktor Frankl, the concentration camp survivor, talks about how we have a moral responsibility to find our purpose in life. And I think the misnomer there is the word purpose as singular. At least in my life, it's been purposes, plural.
Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, I felt my purpose was to play sports, was to play basketball. I ate, drank, and slept basketball. And then when I became an adult or got out of college, I wanted to follow my grandfather's footsteps of being a police officer. And my dad didn't want me to do that, but I felt that was my purpose at that time. And now, in all honesty, as I'm probably coming towards the end of my life, my purpose has changed again to putting as much goodness, positivity, motivation back into the world as I possibly can. So don't feel that, and another thing, I guess it would be great if our purpose could be our job or our occupation, but it doesn't have to be. Our purpose could be over here, or our job could be over here. It's what we do to make a living, to make money. But our purpose, as you were saying, is to be a podcast host or to write or to paint or to be an activist or whatever it is that you feel in your heart you're supposed to do. So, I think it's real important. We should look and find our purpose, but at the same time, don't feel like, oh God, I'm 30 years old. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I'm just going to quit and give up. So many people do. I don't know if you've ever heard of the entrepreneur by the name of Ed Mylett.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about the 4 types of people in the world, and I absolutely love this. He said the first type are the unmotivated. And he said that's the vast majority of people in the world. The second group, he says, are the motivated. It's kind of a carrot and stick approach to life. If I do this, I will get that. It's a life simply based on motivation. It's kind of low level, but it works for a lot of people. The third group he talks about are the inspirational people. The word inspiration coming from 2 words, in spirit. If you're an inspirational person, you move people with your energy. And the last group he talks about are the aspirational people, where people aspire to be like you. And when I talk to groups, I always ask them, where do you fall? And it's funny, Stephen, nobody ever falls in the unmotivated group. Nobody else. Everybody is at least motivated. But if you understand his premise, the vast majority of people in the world are in the unmotivated category, but nobody ever feels they're in that category. So I always challenge people, what are you and where do you want to be? If you're unmotivated now, it doesn't mean somewhere down the road you can't be an aspirational person, but it's going to take a little bit of work.
Right. And I think that's what scares us the most. One is looking in the mirror and being honest, right? Because like the first thing you came on, I'm like, what it is, like, I'm excited. Like, I'm always motivated. Like, so motivation is not something I lack. But I think it's hard to look in the mirror and really like, because you're absolutely right. I want to be that aspirational person. I want people to look at me and just my life in general is encouragement to them. And so, it's, am I there? No, I'm not there. I'm working on it. I would say I'm somewhere in between number 2 and number 3, but we got to be honest with ourselves, and that hurts. That's hard to just look in the mirror and be honest. But you said something that this might be a little morbid, I guess, but you said it, so I'm just going to pull at the thread. You said possibly coming to the end of your life, right? That is a reality currently in your life. Which and ultimately it's a reality in all our lives, right? I don't have cancer, but I could still die tomorrow. I could have a massive heart attack. I could have, a massive stroke, like get in a car accident. How do you embrace that notion, like this could possibly kill me? It could not, but the likelihood is, the reality is it's probably going to kill me, and still stay positive and motivated.
Yeah, that's a great question. When I was diagnosed with this rare form of melanoma back in 2012, it was pretty much a death sentence. They didn't have anything they could offer me other than surgery. You know, if it's someplace that we can cut it out, we'll cut it out. But other than that, we can't offer you anything. Well, it's 11 years later, and I'm still here. And, you know, a couple summers ago, I had all 88 genes that doctors either know of or suspect cause all different forms of cancer, not just melanoma, tested. And I have no mutations in any of my genes, which begs the question, then why did I get this incredibly rare form of cancer? And I remember after I had my leg amputated and found out I had these tumors in my lungs, which I'm still being treated for, my doctor showed me my CAT scan. And I don't know how to read a CAT scan. I have no medical background. But, you know, you can kind of look at it and say, well, gee, that doesn't look like it's supposed to be there. You know, I had these big tumors in my lungs. I had fluid all around the pleural spaces. And I remember looking at him and saying, how was I alive? And he kind of smiled and put his head down and sort of shook his head. And he said, I don't know, because you shouldn't have been. So the answer to your question is, God's not done with me yet. I have a very deep faith in God. I don't spend a lot of time worrying about dying. I spend a lot of time making sure that I live my life. We're all going to die. You know, nobody's working on a cure for life right now, as far as I know. You know, I mean, we're all going to die, but we're not all going to really live. And I heard a Native American Blackfoot proverb long ago that I remember, and it went like this: when you were born, you cried and the world rejoiced. Live your life in such a way so that when you die, the world cries and you rejoice. That's what I want. That's what I'm looking for. So for me, it's not about dying. We're all going to die. I don't worry about that. I worry about the living part of it more.
Dude, that is such great advice. I have never heard that you said that was a Blackfoot Native American proverb?
Blackfoot proverb. Yeah.
Yeah, I've never heard that before, but I'm definitely going to steal that because that is amazing.
Feel free.
And that is absolutely true. You know, how are you living your life? Right. Well, what, oh man, just so much value in just that belief. And I challenge everybody to really just look at yourself, spend an hour meditating on that principle of how are you living your life? Because ultimately, like we already talked about, when I die, that's what I want. I want people to, like, oh man, you know, Stephen, he made such a big impact on me, that, you know, and that, to me, that is the cure for life. That, because like I said, that's immortality, because your name is getting passed on for generations, and your legacy is getting passed on for generations. Yeah, sure, eventually it'll die off, but I mean, it might not. Look, we still talk about Homer, right? Homer is in fact immortal. You know, Leonardo da Vinci, pretty immortal. We still talk about him today. George Washington, pretty freaking immortal. So I mean, when we leave these legacies, that is how immortality comes. That's your career for life right there. Like, yes, well, you won't physically be on this earth, but people are still going to be talking about you, and that's all I want. I want to impact people's lives so positively that they just continue to talk about me for as long as they can. I don't know, but I mean, and that might be vain, but I mean, it's what drives me, because I want to help people so much, as much as I can. And I know you do too, which is why you wrote your book. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Yeah, Sustainable Excellence, the 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life, was really a book born out of two conversations I had. One was with a former player I had coached in high school, and she had come to Colorado, where my wife and I live, with her fiance, and the four of us had dinner one night. And I remember saying to her after dinner that I was excited that she was living close to me now, and I could watch her find and live her purpose. And she got real quiet for a while. Then she looked at me and she said, well, Coach, what do you think my purpose is? And I said, I have absolutely no idea what your purpose is, but that's what your life should be about. Finding the reason you were put on the face of this earth, using your unique gifts and talents, and living that reason. So that was one conversation. And then a young man reached out to me on social media, and he asked me what I thought were the most important things that he should learn not to just be successful in his job or in business, but to be successful in life. And I didn't want to give him the, get up early, work hard, help others. I didn't want to give him those. Not that those aren't important. Those are incredibly important. But I wanted to see if I could go deeper with him. So I spent some time taking notes and sort of had these 10 thoughts, these 10 ideas, these 10 principles. And so I sent them to him. And then I stepped back and I was like, I got a life story that fits underneath that principle, or I know somebody whose life emulates this principle. So literally during the 3 to 4 month period after I was healing, after I had my leg amputated, I sat down at the computer every day and I built stories, and they're real stories about real people underneath each of the principles. And that's how sustainable excellence came to be.
Man. And so sustainable excellence, when I think about that, just that phrase, and it's tiring because it's hard to sustain that level all the time. How do you do it?
I think you constantly have to innovate, to grow, to find a new audience, to do things differently. I mean, we all, people always ask me, well, let's break the title down. What is excellence? And I always say, I don't know. I'm like, what do you mean you don't know? You wrote the book. How can you possibly not know what excellence is? I'm like, I feel like excellence. You and I may look at a sports team or an entertainer or a business or something like that. And you may say, oh, I think that's an excellent company. And I may say, yeah, I think they're good, but I don't think they're excellent. I think excellence, like beauty, is in the eye of the beholder. You have to determine excellence for yourself. I can't determine it for you. You can't determine it for me. So you've got to figure out what excellence is. And then once you determine that, once you've worked hard enough, sweated hard enough, gotten to a point in your life where I've made it, I've reached the top of the mountain. What do most people do? They sort of kick back, put their feet up on the desk, pour themselves a drink, and be like, yeah, I've arrived. And then what happens? 6 months later, a year later, boom, somebody passes them up. And they do that, kind of what we were talking about before. People are watching us. People are watching your company. They're watching how you do things. They're taking the best of what you do. They're applying it to what they do, and maybe even improving upon it. So if you're not growing, if you're not improving, if you're not innovating, if you're not finding a new way to develop and distribute your product, somebody is going to pass you up. That's what the sustainable means. How many college teams, win the NCAA championship? Why don't they win it the next year? Because they get complacent. They think, I did this last year. No, if you did it last year, everybody's figured out that you did it. Now you've got to improve. You've got to do it a different way. You've got to change your offense, your defense, whatever it is. You've got to innovate. And if you don't do that, it's incredibly hard to sustain that excellence.
I love that analogy. And that analogy makes me think of players in the NFL, like Patrick Mahomes, right? When Patrick Mahomes first got introduced to the NFL, no one could freaking stop him. He was unstoppable. But now we're a few years into his career. Now it's suddenly harder for him to maintain that level because people have figured him out. Okay, we know Patrick Mahomes is going to throw a crazy underhanded lob pass that goes 30 yards down the field somehow. Like, we know that's going to happen. So how do we defend it? So he, like you said, he's constant, and he even talks about it. He's like, I'm constantly finding ways to change my game that they don't expect, because they expect these things from me now. So I have to, otherwise I'm not going to be successful anymore. And that, Tom Brady, another prime example of constantly improving his game. And that's why I say everyone in life needs a coach. I don't care if you're in business, if you're just trying to better your life, if you're an athlete, it doesn't matter what you do, who you are, you need a coach and a mentor, at least one of each. Because, I don't understand how people think, oh, I'm working for this Fortune 500 company, I don't need a coach. Like, where would Tom Brady be if he's like, you know what? I won 3 Super Bowls. I think I'm good. I got this on my own. He wouldn't have won any more Super Bowls. I think that's pretty safe to say. He needed his coaches. And so in life, like we've just got to embrace that idea that we constantly have to be improving. Best way to do that, get yourself a coach, get yourself a mentor, someone that is going to hold you accountable, who is going to, and I love that she asked you, coach, what is my purpose? Purpose, just like, and the same thing with success. You have to define that yourself, right? And that's one of the first thing I ask my clients is, what does success mean to you? It could be money, and there's nothing wrong with that. Could be. It could be having a nice house and a nice boat. Could be. I'm not going to tell you that's wrong. For me, success, nothing monetary at all. No personal possession at all. That isn't my definition of success. If that's yours, that's fine. I don't care. Good for you. I'm glad you have that identified. But you have to, all this work we've talked about you having to do, that's another thing just to add to the list. Identify what success means for you. Identify your purpose. And what, like, from there you can identify your goals, and you're creating this GPS for your life that is going to guide you and propel you exactly where you want to go. And I just love that. Like, oh man, goosebumps again, dude. Like, just identify these things and
Yeah.
and embrace them.
When I was growing up, there was a basketball coach at UCLA by the name of John Wooden. And at the time,
Everyone knows who he is.
Yeah, one of the most successful coaches in the world. But he had a definition of success, and I have never found one that's better. And again, probably one of the winningest coaches of all times. And this is how he defines success. Success is peace of mind, which is a direct result of self-satisfaction in knowing that you did the best to become the best that you're capable of becoming. He was an English teacher before, in high school. And he used to say, the person who got an A but never really worked was not nearly as successful as the person who got a C but worked their butt off to get that C. And I think that's the whole thing about success. Did you do your best to be the best person that you can possibly be? And if the answer is yes, then that's success. It's not winning. It's not having material or monetary things. It's not people remembering you. It's not people writing a book. Did you give everything you had? Did you leave it all out on the field? And this as being part of the Army. This as being part of a team. I know this from being part of a team in sports and in law enforcement. You learn that lesson being part of a team. And I think the other thing that when you were talking about having a mentor and having a coach, the important part that we learned about making that work for us in a team is what does being part of a team teach you? It teaches you how to be coachable. It teaches you how to, care about your teammate. It teaches you how to win, how to lose, how to forgive, all those kind of things. So you can have a coach, but if your attitude is not coachable, that coach won't be successful for you. You can have a mentor, but if you're not open to what that mentor says to you, and that's where I think any team, whether it's the military, whether it's sports, whether it's law enforcement, whether it's your family, your colleagues, team can teach you how to be an individual that can work collectively. Because I think if COVID showed us anything, we don't do good by ourselves. We are, the amount of alcoholism, drug abuse, domestic violence that went on during COVID was because we weren't with each other. We need each other to be successful. We're not going to be successful by ourselves. Like you said, we need that coach, we need that mentor, but we need to be open to those things those people are giving us.
Absolutely. And I think one of the key points of being coachable is y'all have to grow thick skin.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's one of the first things I go over with my clients in our very first session is, or actually I cover it before they hire me, is like, look, I'm going to tell you the truth. I promise I make you this one promise. I don't promise you that we're going to be successful in our endeavors together, but I can promise you I'll always be honest with you and I will never sugarcoat it. I will never beat around the bush. I'm always going to tell you exactly what I think, exactly how I see it. And I could be wrong, right? I'm human. I'm wrong sometimes, but I'm always going to be honest. And you, as my client, you must have a thick skin because sometimes it's going to hurt your feelings. And you have to be able to sit back and go, you know what, Stephen really hurt my feelings. But he didn't mean to, because he's coming from a position of love where he's trying to help me become better. So he's just telling me the hard truth, right? Number one rule of being coachable is you have to have a thick skin. I can't tell you how many times before I joined the military, I got dragged around the football field by my coach, by the face mask. I can't tell you how many times my coach, who was about 6'6", about 300 pounds, giant man, lifted my 5'11" butt off the ground by my face mask to pull my face close to his so that he could scream at me, spitting in my face, because that, and I'll just get that shower. And never once did I think that he didn't love me, that I wasn't important to him. He was just mad because I'm screwing up, right? And so I think that ultimately, and then of course the military helped me develop a really thick skin. But I mean, that thick skin piece is so important. You can't be sensitive. Obviously there's a time and place for being sensitive, but when it comes to growth, you can't be sensitive because growth hurts, right? You think about a tree, right? When a tree is born into this world, it's got to literally explode out of the nut, out of the acorn, whatever. Like it's got to explode and then it's got to force its way through the soil. That's got to be painful. I don't know if trees feel pain, but I would imagine if they do, that's an incredibly painful process, right? Children to be born, maybe not so much for the child, but it's a painful process. Like growth is painful and you can't be sensitive when it comes to your growth.
True.
So awesome, man. So we're coming up on time. We're actually over on time, but that's okay because this has been a really fun conversation, and I think there's going to be a ton of value for our listeners. But before we go, I want to give you a chance to plug away. Tell people how to get a hold of your book, how to get a hold of you, how to hire you, how to get you to their speaking events, and just if they want to get in contact with you to learn from you how that can happen.
Yeah, Sustainable Excellence can be purchased anywhere. You can get a book online, Amazon, BarnesandNoble.com, Apple iBooks, wherever you get your books online, you can find Sustainable Excellence. To get a hold of me, I have a blog. Every day I put up a thought for the day, and with that thought comes a question about maybe how you can incorporate that in your life. On Mondays, I put up the Monday morning motivational message. I have recommendations for books to read, videos to watch. You can leave me a message. All of that is at motivationalcheck.com.
Awesome. And of course, as always, I'm going to have all his links in the bio or in the show notes, whatever platform you're on. Just scroll down and you'll find all his links to his website, socials, book, everything. And then, of course, once you're done showing him all the love, head over to renownleadership.com and give me plenty of love because he's got plenty of love. I'm the one that needs the love here. No, I'm kidding, of course. But yeah, once you're done doing that, head over to my website, check out everything I got to offer you as well. So Terry, every guest gets to finish the show with this final question. What is your advice for people to lead their life like a champion?
I guess I'll tell you a story if you don't mind to answer that question. Always been a big fan of Westerns growing up. When I was young, my mom and dad used to let me stay up late and watch Bonanza and Gunsmoke, and my favorite was Wild Wild West. 1993, the movie Tombstone came out. You may have seen it. Huge blockbuster. Starred Val Kilmer as a man by the name of John Doc Holliday and Kurt Russell as a man by the name of Wyatt Earp. Now, for those who don't know, Doc Holliday and Wyatt Earp were two living, breathing human beings who walked on the face of the earth. They're not made up characters just for the movie. Now, Doc was called Doc because he was a dentist by trade, but pretty much Doc Holliday was a gunslinger and a card shark. And Wyatt Earp had been some form of a lawman his entire life. So these two men from entirely opposite backgrounds somehow come together and form this incredibly close friendship. And at the end of the movie, Doc Holliday is dying at a sanitarium of tuberculosis in Glenwood Springs, Colorado, which is about 3 hours from where I live. The real Doc Holliday died at that sanitarium. He's buried in the Glenwood Springs Cemetery. Wyatt, at this point in his life, is destitute. He has no money. He has no job. He has no prospects for a job. So every day he comes to play cards with Doc, and the two men pass the time that way. And in this almost last scene in the movie, they're talking about what they want out of life. And Doc says, I was in love with my cousin when I was younger, but she joined a convent over the affair. But she's all I ever wanted. Then he looks at Wyatt and he says, what about you, Wyatt? What do you want? And Wyatt kind of nonchalantly says, I just want to lead a normal life. And Doc looks at him and says, there's no normal. There's just life. And get on with living yours. Stephen, you and I probably know people. There's probably out there people listening to us, who are thinking, well, when this happens, I'll have a normal life. Or when that occurs, I'll have a successful life. Or when this happens, I'll have a significant life. What I'd like to leave your audience with is this. Don't wait. Don't wait for life to come to you. Get out there, find the reason you were put on the face of this earth, use your unique gifts and talents, and live that reason. Because if you do, at the end of your life, I'm going to promise you two things. Number one, you're going to be a whole lot happier. And number two, you're going to have a whole lot more peace in your heart.
Man, that was really good. Well done. I don't know if you've practiced that, but that was well done. Well said, sir. And I absolutely love Tombstone. And Wyatt Earp, wasn't he an outlaw before he became a lawman? Or am I getting confused?
No, he wasn't. He had some issues. His first wife had died and things like that. But he was always trying to be an entrepreneur. And somehow law enforcement kept sucking him back in. You're going to be a sheriff. You're going to be a marshal. You're going to do all this stuff. And he and his brothers pretty much were lawmen most of their life.
Okay. I must be thinking of someone else, because I know there's another famous lawman that before he became a lawman, back in the day in the Wild West, he was an outlaw actually. So I'll have to figure out who that was now, because man. Anyway, yeah, love the movie Tombstone. If y'all haven't seen that movie, you got to go watch that movie. Val Kilmer does a fantastic job, and Doc Holliday is probably the most lovable character for an insanely large D-bag. He just you can't help but love him, even though he's a jerk. Yep. But yeah, he's incredible movie. I love that movie. All right, everybody. So that's going to wrap up this week's episode of the Renowned Leadership Podcast. My thanks to Terry Tucker for joining us today. It was an amazing episode, sir. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me on, Stephen. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. So I will see you all next week. And in the meantime, never forget, lead your life like a champion. And see you next week, everybody. Goodbye.
I try to sleep, but you're deep in my mind. Got a hold of me. When I'm awake, I'm all blind.
Let's go. What an incredible story, incredible journey. What an incredible guy. It was so much fun to talk to Terry. And out of all the guests I've had and got to talk to and interview, he was one of the easiest people I've ever talked to. Just incredible dude. And I had just so much fun talking to him. So make sure you go check out his website, motivationalcheck.com. Grab his book. Definitely grab his book. It is amazing. It's Sustainable Excellence by Terry Tucker. You can't go wrong with this book. It's absolutely amazing. And then once you're done doing that, everybody head over to renownedleadership.com. Come give me some love. Check out what I've got going on for y'all. And click that book now button and come have a little one-on-one chat with me. It's free. Why not? What do you have to lose other than an hour of your time? So that's going to wrap it up this week, guys. Thank you so much for joining. Make sure you like, love, leave a comment. And I will see you all next week. In the meantime, never forget, lead like a champion. Goodbye, everybody.